She thought she'd been stood up, that another chance at love had fallen apart before it even began. But when two 6-year-old girls burst through that coffee shop door, eyes full of determination and lips full of secrets, everything changed. They weren't supposed to be there. Their father had no idea, and what they were about to reveal would turn a ruined date into the start of something neither she nor he could have predicted. Before we begin, tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. Rachel Monroe checked her phone for the 7th time in 3 minutes. 6:47 p.m., 17 minutes late. She sat alone at a corner table inside the Maple Street Cafe, both hands wrapped around a ceramic mug of chamomile tea that had long since gone cold. The golden glow of autumn light that usually made this place feel warm now only pressed heavier on her chest. Around her, couples leaned across tables, whispering and laughing under the soft hum of jazz from the ceiling speakers. Rachel was the only one sitting alone. She sighed. 5 more minutes, she told herself, just 5. Then she'd text Brooke, her coworker who had arranged this blind date, and tell her she was right. Dating just wasn't for her. After 2 years of pouring everything into her veterinary practice, maybe she wasn't ready. Maybe she'd been right to keep her walls up. Just one coffee, Brooke had insisted 3 days ago in the clinic break room. His name's Ethan Carter, 34, an architectural engineer, and a genuinely good man. Trust me, but trust was hard. And as Rachel watched the door, feeling that familiar ache of disappointment rise in her chest, trust felt impossible. At 6:51, the small bell above the door chimed. Rachel looked up, a flicker of hope sparking despite herself. But it wasn't a man in his 30s. It wasn't Ethan Carter. It was 2 little girls. They couldn't have been older than 6, twin faces framed by bouncy brown curls and bright green eyes that scanned the cafe with startling purpose. Matching red jackets over what looked like school uniforms. Their tiny hands were clasped tightly together as they surveyed the room, and then, their eyes locked on Rachel. Before she could process what was happening, the girls marched straight toward her table, small but confident, like little soldiers on a mission. The taller one, by barely half an inch, stopped in front of her and tilted her head. "Are you Miss Rachel?" she asked seriously. Rachel blinked. Yes I am." "And you are?" "I'm Ella," the girl announced proudly, gesturing to her sister. "This is Lily. Our dad says sorry he's late." Rachel froze. These had to be Ethan's daughters. But Brooke had never said anything about kids or twins. "He had to stay at work," Lily added quietly, her voice softer than her sister's. Before she could say more, Ella quickly covered her mouth. "Lily." Rachel's confusion must have been obvious because Ella sighed, the kind of tired sigh that didn't belong to a 6-year-old, and pulled out the chair across from her. She climbed up, tugging Lily beside her. "Okay," she said, folding her hands like a little businesswoman. "We should tell the truth." "The truth?" Rachel repeated. "Dad doesn't know we're here," Lily whispered, guilt flickering in her green eyes. Rachel's brows shot up. "He doesn't? Wait, what?" "But he is sorry he's late," Ella insisted. "We know because we heard him on the phone last night." Rachel leaned forward, drawn in despite herself. "You heard him?" Lily nodded, curls bouncing. "We were supposed to be asleep, but we heard him talking in the hallway. Someone called about a big problem at the new library, something about the foundation. He kept saying he couldn't believe this was happening tonight. He said he had something really important at 6:30 at Maple Street Cafe." Rachel smiled despite the absurdity. "And you two figured out that was here?" "We're very smart," Ella said matter-of-factly. "We remembered because Dad wrote it on the kitchen calendar." He circled it 3 times and drew a smiley face. A warmth spread through Rachel's chest. "A smiley face, he was so excited," Lily said softly. "He even ironed his shirt yesterday." "Daddy never irons," Rachel laughed. Soft, genuine, unexpected. These 2 little girls with their serious faces and secret plan had somehow turned her lonely evening into something else entirely. "So," Ella went on, "when we heard him say he might be late because of work, we made a plan." She straightened proudly. "We asked Mrs. Grant, she's our babysitter, to bring us here. We told her it was really, really important." Rachel turned to the window. Sure enough, an elderly woman sat waiting in a sedan parked outside, watching with patient disbelief. When she caught Rachel's eye, she waved, We kinda begged, Lily admitted shyly. Maybe cried a little. Strategic crying, Ella corrected, serious as ever. It was necessary. Rachel pressed her lips together to hide a laugh. These girls were something else. Well, she said finally, would you two like to sit with me for a bit? Maybe have some hot chocolate? Their faces lit up like Christmas morning. Ella darted to the window and waved frantically at Mrs. Grant, who sighed but nodded with a smile of surrender. When they sat back down, Rachel called over the barista and ordered 2 hot chocolates with extra whipped cream. As they waited, she studied the girls more closely. Beneath all that confidence and energy, she sensed something deeper, a quiet sadness children their age shouldn't know. So, she asked gently, tell me about your dad. Does he go on a lot of dates? The twins shared a silent glance, the kind that only siblings can understand. Then Ella shook her head. Never, she said quietly. You're the first one since Mommy went to heaven. The cafe noise faded into nothing. Rachel's heart clenched. When did that happen? She asked softly. 2 years ago, Lily said, picking at the edge of her jacket. Right after we started pre-K. She got really sick really fast. The doctor said it was something in her brain, Ella added, her voice small but steady. Rachel didn't say the word that popped into her mind. She simply reached across the table and took Lily's tiny hand. I'm so sorry, she whispered. Daddy took care of us all by himself, Ella said proudly now. He learned how to braid hair from YouTube videos, Rachel smiled. From YouTube? He watched them every night for a week, Lily said. He messed up a lot at first. My braids were lumpy. But he kept trying, Ella added quickly. Now he's really good. The hot chocolates arrived, topped with towers of whipped cream that nearly spilled over the edges. The girls tried to sip carefully, but within seconds both had white mustaches that made them look like tiny, serious old men. Rachel laughed out loud, the sound light and real. He makes the best grilled cheese too, Lily said, licking whipped cream off her upper lip. With 3 kinds of cheese, and he sings us Mommy's favorite songs every night. His voice isn't as pretty as hers was. She paused, lowering her voice. But we don't tell him that. Rachel felt her eyes sting with tears, she could see it. Ethan Carter, a man she'd never met, learning braids from YouTube, making grilled cheese for his daughters, staying up late singing songs just to fill the silence she'd left behind. Rachel pictured the man she'd never met, Ethan Carter, staying up late at night, watching braiding tutorials determined to give his little girls a sense of normalcy. A man learning to live with grief while still showing up every morning for 2 children who saw him as their entire world. Daddy was really nervous about tonight, Lily whispered conspiratorially, her green eyes wide. He tried on 4 different shirts. 4? Rachel asked, amused. Lily nodded eagerly. And he practiced what to say in the mirror. We weren't supposed to watch, but we peeked through his bedroom door. What was he practicing? Rachel asked, trying not to grin. Ella straightened in her chair and dropped her voice, mimicking her father's tone. Hi, I'm Ethan. Nice to meet you. She shook her head dramatically. Nope, that sounded weird. Okay, try again. Hello, Rachel, Ugh, no, not that either. Lily giggled. Then he said a bad word, she confessed, eyes wide, and decided to just be himself. Rachel laughed, really laughed, and something inside her chest softened. He really wanted to be here, Ella said seriously. Daddy doesn't break promises, so we knew if he couldn't come, it had to be something big. He designs buildings to keep people safe, Lily added proudly.
He said if the foundation isn't right, the whole thing can fall down.
Safety is his, she frowned, searching. Responsibility, Ella finished. He always says that. Rachel looked at them, understanding dawning. These weren't just 2 clever little girls pulling a cute stunt. They were protectors, watching out for their father just like he watched out for them. You must be really proud of him, she said softly. Both girls nodded at the same time. He's the best daddy in the world, they chorused. Then Lily's face fell a little. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. But sometimes he's sad. He looks at Mommy's picture when he thinks we're asleep. We see him standing in the hallway just staring at it. Rachel's throat tightened. That's why we were happy when Aunt Brooke said she found someone nice for him, Ella explained. We just want him to smile again, like before. Aunt Brooke. The pieces clicked. Brooke wasn't just Rachel's coworker. She was Ethan's sister-in-law. That's why she'd been so insistent about this date. We saw him this morning, Lily said, a hopeful spark in her voice. He was humming while he made breakfast. Daddy only hums when he's really happy. And he made butterfly-shaped pancakes, Ella added proudly. He said, today's going to be a good day. Rachel's phone buzzed on the table. She glanced down upon a text from Brooke. Have you heard from Ethan? He's not picking up. Rachel looked up again. Girls, your dad really doesn't know you're here, does he? His phone's probably in his truck, Ella said confidently. He always forgets it when he's looking at blueprints. He's probably almost done, Lily added hopefully. We heard him say he just needed 2 hours to finish checking everything. Rachel glanced at the clock, 7:25 p.m. If Ethan had reached the construction site around 5:30, he might actually be wrapping up soon. Then an idea hit her, impulsive, wild, but somehow perfect. She looked at the two brave little girls who'd orchestrated this entire mission out of pure love, and a smile tugged at her lips. I have an idea, she said, leaning closer. What if we take dinner to your dad? If he's been working all evening, he's probably starving. The transformation was instant. Ella and Lily's faces lit up like Christmas morning. Really? They gasped in unison. Really, Rachel confirmed. What's his favorite food? Chinese, Ella squealed. From Golden Palace on 3rd Street. He loves their orange chicken, but he always gets sweet and sour pork too. And fried rice. Lots of fried rice. And those crispy spring rolls. Rachel pulled out her phone. Perfect. Let's order all of that. Maybe a little extra for his co-workers too. While she placed the order, the twins kept chattering excitedly, voices tumbling over each other in pure joy. They told her how their dad had learned to sew just to fix their favorite stuffed animals, how he never missed a school play or parent-teacher night, even if it meant leaving work early, how he spent 3 whole months of weekends building them a treehouse last summer. It has a secret password, Lily whispered, leaning close. Mommy's Angels. That's what she called us. Dad says we have her eyes, Ella said softly, and her smile. She was a music teacher, Lily added. She taught kids how to love singing. That's why Daddy still sings to us every night, to keep her songs alive. Rachel had to blink back tears. She'd come to that coffee shop expecting an awkward blind date. Maybe a quick chat. Maybe a polite goodbye. Instead, she found herself sitting across from 2 extraordinary little girls who were teaching her what love, courage, and showing up truly meant, even when life breaks your heart. I really thought I could pull it off, Ethan said, half laughing at himself. Finish this mess, show up just a little late, maybe text you on the way so you wouldn't think I bailed. I just did not know they were going to stage a whole operation, Rachel smiled. They didn't just stage it, she said softly. They saved the date. We did not save it, Ella said, offended. We captured it, Lily corrected, extremely serious. The date was escaping. We brought it back. Even though his face was still a little red from embarrassment, Ethan laughed. Not a polite laugh. Not a nervous one. A real laugh. And when he laughed like that, his whole face changed. The stress fell off him. The tiredness in his shoulders eased. Something warmer showed through. Softer. Honest. Rachel saw him in that moment. The man his daughters had described. The one who makes butterfly pancakes. The one who learned how to braid from YouTube. The one who still sings lullabies even when his voice cracks. My rescue team, Ethan said quietly, pulling both girls in. Ella and Lily wrapped their arms around his waist and held on, and for one small second it felt like the 3 of them were their own little world. Whole, unbreakable. When Ethan finally let them go and looked back at Rachel, his eyes had changed. There was openness there now, and a little fear. I'll understand if you'd rather forget this, he admitted. I mean, most first dates don't get hijacked by 2 6-year-olds and turn into takeout dinner in a construction trailer with sawdust and emergency foundation reports. This was not exactly how I pictured tonight. Rachel glanced at Ella and Lily. They were both staring at her like tiny, anxious statues. Same wide eyes, same little hands clenched together tight. And Rachel thought about the last hour. Hot chocolate and whipped cream mustaches. Stories about YouTube braiding tutorials and triple cheese grilled sandwiches. A dad who circled tonight on his calendar and drew a smiley face because he let himself hope again. Actually, Rachel said, looking right at him, your daughters are incredible. They get that from their mother, Ethan said automatically. Then he froze. I wasn't trying to. It's okay, Rachel said gently. They told me about her. She sounds like she was pretty amazing. Something in Ethan's face unlocked. The tension, the self-defense, the worry she'd judge him gone. She was, he said quietly, and she would have been dying laughing watching this. The two of them running a full romantic mission? She'd be telling this story for the next 10 years. Daddy, Lily cut in, tugging on his sleeve and snapping the moment in half. The orange chicken is getting cold, and Miss Rachel probably hasn't even eaten yet. Yeah, Ella said like a manager. Focus, please. Ethan looked at the paper bags in his hands, then back at Rachel. Would you want to just eat here? I mean, I know this is not ideal, and there's literal sawdust on the floor, and that's a toolbox, not a dining table. But if you don't mind. I'd love to, Rachel said, and she meant it. They cleared a spot on the desk, sliding rolled-up blueprints and clipboards out of the way. Ethan dug through a storage cabinet and came up with some paper plates. Sorry, he said with an embarrassed grin. This is our fine china tonight. They opened the takeout. Fried rice, orange chicken, sweet and sour pork, crispy spring rolls, and the little trailer filled up with that perfect, salty sweet, warm smell. Ella and Lily talked nonstop, full mission debrief. Who thought of what? Whose idea it was to get Mrs. Grant to drive them? Who did the convincing cry the whole time? Ethan kept glancing at Rachel. At first, his eyes said, I'm sorry this is happening like this. Little by little, they began to say something else. Thank you for not running. Thank you for sitting here with us. Thank you for giving me a chance. So, Rachel said playfully as she scooped fried rice onto her plate, you practiced your introduction 4 times in the mirror? Ethan groaned and dropped his face into his hand. You told her that? The blue shirt was the winner, Lily said in a very official tone. That's the one you chose. Rachel looked at his shirt. It was wrinkled now, a little smudged from work, but she could tell it hadn't been random. He'd cared what he looked like for tonight. It suits you, she said softly. He lifted his head. Their eyes met. Just for a heartbeat, but it was enough to light something up between them. Recognition, pull, possibility. Then, of course, Lily ruined the silence in the most honest way possible. Daddy, she blurted.
Are you going to ask Miss Rachel on a second date?
Like a real one this time? Yeah, Ella added helpfully. One where you actually show up on time and don't have to fix a building. Ethan almost choked on a spring roll. Girls, Rachel leaned back, smiling. Well, she said casually, I do like pancakes. And I heard a rumor someone around here makes butterfly-shaped pancakes. The twins both gasped like someone had just announced Christmas. Saturday pancakes, Ella declared. Dad, ask her. Ethan looked at Rachel again. Gone was the guarded, apologetic version of him. What was left was honest. Hopeful. A little scared, but in a good way. Would you? He asked quietly. Want to come over Saturday morning? Breakfast at our place, pancakes. I promise I will actually be there this time. No job site emergencies. No disappearing. 8 a.m. Rachel asked. 8, he nodded. And I'll even wear the blue shirt again. Properly ironed, Rachel smiled. It's a date. Behind him, Ella and Lily smacked a secret high-five so loud it practically echoed. Mission complete, Ella whispered. I heard that. Little criminals, Ethan said without turning around, reaching over to ruffle her hair. Saturday morning came wrapped in gold. Soft fall sunlight spilled through the kitchen windows of Ethan Carter's house. At exactly 7:58 a.m., Rachel stood on his front porch, and for the first time since the construction site, she felt nervous before she could even knock. The door flew open. You came, you came, you came! Ella and Lily squealed in perfect unison, still in matching pajamas. They grabbed both of Rachel's hands and practically dragged her inside with way more strength than 2 6-year-olds should have. We've been waiting since 7, Lily confessed breathlessly. Daddy said we weren't allowed to call you and wake you up early, but we really wanted to. The house smelled like butter, vanilla, and coffee. Kids' drawings covered the fridge. A basket of clean laundry sat half-folded on the couch. 2 tiny backpacks hung on hooks by the door. It wasn't staged. It felt lived in. It felt warm. And there in the kitchen was Ethan. Same blue shirt, this time ironed. Jeans. A little streak of flour on his cheek. When he saw her, he smiled. Not the stressed, overworked version she'd first met. This was lighter, brighter, more him. "You made it," he said, and he didn't bother hiding the relief in his voice. "I made it," Rachel said, "and I am extremely ready to review these so-called famous butterfly pancakes." "They're the best," Lily said with deep seriousness. "Sometimes they look more like blobs, but we eat the blobs too." The morning just flowed. Ethan flipped pancakes at the stove. The girls showed Rachel their school art projects like it was a museum exhibit. All four of them squeezed around the kitchen table, sticky syrup on little fingers, laughing between bites. Rachel watched Ethan with his daughters, the way he wiped a dot of syrup off Lily's chin without being asked. The way he automatically cut Ella's pancakes smaller even though she swore she was basically grown. The way he looked at them, not halfway, not distracted, fully, lovingly, after breakfast. Lily appeared beside Rachel holding a hairbrush like it was a sacred object. "Daddy's good at braids," she said, "but can you try?" Something in Rachel melted. "I would love to," she said. She sat on the couch with Lily on the floor between her knees, gently working through her curls. From the sink, Ethan washed dishes. But Rachel could feel his eyes on her even when his back was turned. When she finally looked up, he was already looking. Their eyes met. And something passed there. Quiet, steady, important. He was letting her in. Not just into his house. Into his real life. "Your braids are pretty," Lily whispered when Rachel finished. "Not as good as Daddy's," Rachel teased. Lily tilted her head. "Maybe just as good," she admitted shyly. Ella bounced into the room like a firecracker. "Can we show Miss Rachel the treehouse now?" Ethan looked at Rachel, checking. "If you want," he said. "Full disclosure, it's just a treehouse. They talk about it like it's a castle." "It is a castle," Ella said, hands on her hips. They stepped outside into cool autumn air. In the backyard, an old oak tree held a handmade treehouse. Wood a little weathered, rope ladder hanging down, a tiny square window. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't store-bought. It was loved. "You have to know the password," Lily whispered at the base of the ladder. Rachel crouched to her level. "Okay," she whispered back. "What's the password?" The twins shared a look, some secret twin conversation without a word. Then Lily leaned in close and breathed it into Rachel's ear. "Mommy's angels." Rachel repeated it just as softly. "Mommy's angels." The girls lit up like she'd passed the test. They scrambled up the rope ladder. Rachel followed. Ethan climbed up last. Inside, the treehouse was small and warm. Pillows on the floor, marker drawings taped to the wooden walls of butterflies, stars, rainbows. And in one corner, carefully placed, a framed photo of a smiling woman with the same green eyes as Ella and Lily. Rachel didn't say anything. She didn't need to, because it was obvious. This wasn't just a treehouse. This was memory. This was love built with hands. This was where their family still breathed. And for the first time, Rachel realized something quietly and completely. She hadn't just walked into a date. She had walked into a life. Into a home, into them. The walls were covered in kids' drawings. Butterflies everywhere, rainbows, little hearts. And then, in one corner, there was a small picture frame placed so carefully it felt sacred. Inside the frame, a woman was smiling. Green eyes, soft brown curls, and a kind of gentleness in her face that words couldn't hold. "That's our mama," Ella whispered. Rachel's breath caught. "She was so beautiful," Lily nodded. "Daddy built this treehouse the summer she went to heaven. He worked on it every single weekend. We kept saying we can help, but mostly we just sat and watched." Ethan spoke then, but his voice had changed. Lower, heavier, honest. "I needed to build something that wouldn't break. Something the girls could keep. Something that would stay, always." Later, when the girls were running around in the yard, Ethan and Rachel sat together on the back steps, warm coffee mugs in their hands, cool air around them. "I haven't done this in a really long time," Ethan said quietly. "Let someone in like this, honestly? It's scary." Rachel let out a small laugh, not tired, not bitter, soft, understanding. "I get it." I spent 2 years telling myself, work is enough. I'm fine. I don't need anyone. Ethan looked away for a second, then back at her. So, what changed? Rachel looked at him and actually laughed this time. 2 tiny 6-year-old girls walked into a coffee shop like they were FBI agents and basically dragged me into your life. After that, I couldn't go back. Ethan's face softened, but then he grew serious. Rachel, I need to be straight with you. I'm not simple. My life comes with extras. 2 extras, he smiled a little. Ella and Lily are my whole world. They come first, always. Anyone who's in my life has to understand that. Rachel turned fully toward him. I wouldn't want it any other way, she said, steady. Ethan, your daughters don't scare me off. They're why I'm still here. They're special. Her voice caught for a second. And the way you love them. The way you show up for them every single day in whatever situation. That is honestly the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Ethan's eyes shimmered. He breathed out like he was admitting something he hadn't said out loud in years. I haven't felt like this in a really long time, he said quietly, and I didn't think I ever could again. And it scares me because the last time I loved someone this much, he swallowed. His voice thickened. I lost her. Rachel didn't hesitate. She reached forward and took his hand. Their fingers slid together easily, like they'd always belonged there. I'm scared too, she said softly. But I think when your heart is scared like this, it means it's real. It means it matters. Ethan let out a soft breath. Yeah, he murmured. That's exactly what it means. And then from the yard, Ella's voice came flying in like sunlight. Daddy! Miss Rachel! Hurry, hurry! We found a butterfly and it's super special. Ethan smiled, gave Rachel's hand one last squeeze and stood. Come on, he said. Sounds like we've got a butterfly emergency that needs attention. Time moved. 3 months slipped by like pages turning on their own. Every day was made of these tiny moments, little pieces that, slowly, quietly, started to feel like a life. Rachel sat in the second row of the school auditorium, watching Ella and Lily on stage in their school play, dressed up as singing flowers, giving it absolutely everything into a tiny microphone. Rachel clapped louder than any other parent in the room. Maybe way louder. In the dark, Ethan's hand reached for hers gently. He leaned in, close enough that only she could hear him. Thank you for coming, he whispered. Rachel smiled, real and full. Where else would I be? She whispered back after that. They almost fell into a rhythm. Rachel started showing up at Ethan's construction sites with coffee. She'd learned the difference between a blueprint and an elevation drawing. Ethan's crew would tease him nonstop. Boss, the vet brought your caffeine again. And Ethan would just duck his head and smile. October came. All 4 of them went to the pumpkin patch. Ella and Lily absolutely refused to leave unless everyone picked matching pumpkins. In the end, Ethan and Rachel were each carrying these 2 big, lopsided pumpkins that were the same shape, and Ella announced proudly, See? Told you, you 2 match. Then came Halloween. They made butterfly costumes at home. Wire hangers, tape, tissue paper, chaos everywhere. Ella and Lily ran around the living room, arms out, shouting, We're literally butterflies. This is not pretend, this is real life. And through all of it, the way Ethan looked at Rachel, so soft, so grateful, so unguarded, it actually stopped Rachel's heart for a second. Their mom would have loved this, Ethan said quietly, and she would have loved you too. Then came a Tuesday night. The girls had already fallen asleep. A movie was on TV, but neither of them was watching it. Ella and Lily had passed out between them on the couch, small and warm and safe. Ethan reached over the sleeping girls and laced his fingers through Rachel's. No big dramatic speech. No huge moment, just that one quiet contact, and something in Rachel settled, clicked into place. Like her heart said, this right here. This is home, this is it. This feels right. This is mine. Then December came. Snow, soft and slow. The night everything shifted. The girls were upstairs asleep. Rachel was by the front door, putting on her coat, getting ready to leave. Ethan stood there with her, holding the door half open. Cold air outside, warm light behind them. I don't want you to go, he said, barely above a whisper. Rachel paused, exhaled. I don't want to go, she admitted, honest. Ethan lifted his hand and tucked a loose piece of her hair behind her ear. His palm stayed against her cheek. Can I? He didn't finish the sentence because she leaned in first. The first kiss was soft, a little unsure. Like both of them were asking, is this okay? And then it deepened. And it wasn't a question anymore. It was an answer. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing a little too fast, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. Eyes closed. I'm falling in love with you, he whispered. Rachel's lips trembled, then curved into a smile. Her eyes were shining. I'm already there, she whispered back. Neither of them noticed that at the top of the stairs, two tiny spies were peeking through the railing. Lily and Ella, hands clasped, faces about to burst with joy. Daddy's happy again, Lily whispered. We did good, Ella said proudly. 6 months later, the same coffee shop where it all began. Ethan Carter stood near the entrance, a small velvet box in his pocket, his heart pounding so hard it felt like it might break out of his chest. Ella and Lily were with Mrs. Grant, which officially meant dinner and movie night, but actually meant they were sitting there with their phones, waiting for one specific message. Come now. It's time. He'd told them his plan 3 days earlier. Ella cried. Lily hugged him so hard he'd laughed and said, Can I breathe, tiny human? And then both of them announced, We're picking the ring. No negotiation. They dragged him to 3 jewelry stores until they found the one that sparkled the way their mama's eyes used to. Now, Ethan sat at that same table where Rachel had once sat alone, disappointed, almost ready to give up. And this time he was the one waiting. When Rachel walked through the door, she looked a little confused. Ethan, I thought we were meeting at the place on 5th. Sit, he said softly, gesturing to the chair across from him. Rachel sat down slowly. Is everything okay? She asked. Ethan inhaled. Yes, his hands were actually shaking. It's better than okay, he said. I wanted you here, right here, where you sat the first night, where everything started. Rachel's face changed, recognition, warmth. That ache you feel when you realize you're standing in a moment that matters. Ethan's voice went low. 6 months ago, I was supposed to meet you at this exact table at 6:30. I was 17 minutes late, and I thought I'd ruined everything before it even began. He paused, looking at her, and let out a small laugh. But 2 little 6-year-olds had their own plan. They walked through that door with serious faces and whipped cream mustaches. And they changed my entire life. Rachel's eyes filled. Her lips trembled. No words came out. Ella and Lily, they brought me back to life, Ethan said, his voice heavy and trembling, each word breaking softly from his chest. But you, Rachel, you gave me permission to live again. You made me believe that I still deserve happiness. That falling in love again doesn't mean betraying the love I lost. He stopped, reached slowly into his pocket, and pulled out a small velvet box. Rachel's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes already brimming with tears. You came into our lives exactly when we needed someone the most, Ethan said quietly, opening the box. Inside was a simple, beautiful ring. No glitter, no grand show, just truth. You loved my girls like they were your own. You brought light back into this house that had forgotten how to shine. You made our breakfast special again, softened our ordinary days. He paused, closed his eyes for a moment, his voice cracking. You gave me a second chance, and I don't want to waste it. He slowly dropped down on one knee. Rachel, his lips were trembling now. Will you marry me? For a few seconds, time itself seemed to stop. Rachel couldn't speak. At first, only tears fell, heavy, hot, unstoppable. Then she nodded, again and again, a breathless laugh breaking through her sobs. Yes. Her voice shook. Yes, Ethan, yes, 1,000 times, yes. Ethan's hands trembled as he slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been waiting for her all along. And just as they stood up, the little coffee shop bell jingled above the door. Ding ding, we knew it. Ella and Lily burst through the door like a tiny storm, with Mrs. Grant right behind them, shaking her head and smiling like someone saying, I swear. I tried to stop them. The girls ran straight into Ethan and Rachel's arms, laughter, squeals, tears, all at once, all tangled. We knew you'd say yes, Ella shouted with joy. We picked the ring, Lily declared proudly. This sparkly one and like Mommy's eyes used to shine. Do you like it? Rachel laughed through her tears, hugging them both so tightly she could barely breathe. I love it, she whispered. I love you both so much. We love you too. they said together, voices perfectly in sync. Ethan wrapped his arms around all three of them, Rachel, Ella, and Lily, and there in that tiny old coffee shop, the place where they almost never met, they finally became what they were always meant to be. A family. Whole. Complete. Theirs. Almost a year later, a soft autumn Saturday morning, the air cool, the sunlight golden, and the backyard glowing with quiet beauty. Rachel wore a simple white dress. No big hall, no orchestra, no grand audience. Just the people who truly loved them, close friends, neighbors, a few relatives, and of course, Ella and Lily. The ceremony was held under the same big tree where the little treehouse stood, the one Ethan had built during a summer of pain and healing, a place meant to last forever. Ella and Lily walked down the aisle first, wearing butterfly dresses that shimmered in the light, each holding one white rose. Together they placed it gently on an empty chair in the front row, a chair for their mother. She wasn't there, but her love was. Her memory was, and her daughters were now welcoming a new woman into their family. When it was time for the vows, Rachel wiped her tears, took a deep breath, and smiled through them. "I walked into that coffee shop for a blind date," she said softly, voice trembling but strong. "But instead I met two tiny matchmakers, two 6-year-old girls who decided their daddy needed saving. They brought me here. They saved me, just as much as they saved him." She turned toward Ella and Lily, who stood beside her in their butterfly dresses, glowing with pride. "Love doesn't always arrive on time," Rachel said, smiling. "Sometimes it's 17 minutes late." She laughed, wiping her cheeks. "And sometimes it comes carried by two brave little girls who just couldn't stand to see their daddy sad anymore." She leaned down, kissed both their foreheads, and whispered, "Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for letting me love you." Then Ethan began his vows. He didn't speak much, just from the heart, like he always did. "You taught me how to love again," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You showed me that honoring the past doesn't mean giving up the future. You helped me see that I can carry my memories and still move forward." He looked straight at her. "I love you, Rachel, always." When they kissed, Ella and Lily screamed so loud, clapping wildly, that the entire crowd burst into laughter. Later that evening, the ceremony was over. Guests were mingling. The air smelled of autumn leaves and soft music floated in the background. Rachel stood quietly for a moment by the treehouse, the one Ethan had built that summer when everything felt too heavy. She looked up at the wood, the little ladder, the tiny windows. Then she whispered softly, like a prayer to the sky, "Thank you for giving this world two brave little girls, for loving them so deeply that they knew how to recognize love when they saw it. I promise I'll take care of them. Always." She felt warm arms wrap around her from behind. Ethan rested his face against her hair and whispered, "She would have loved you, Rachel." "I know she would have." Rachel smiled, eyes closed, her voice barely above a breath. "I hope so." Ethan kissed her forehead. "I'm sure of it." They stood there together, watching Ella and Lily run across the yard, their butterfly wings glowing in the last golden light of the day. And in that stillness, the truth settled deep in their hearts. Love doesn't always follow a schedule. Sometimes it's 17 minutes late, carried by two little girls who refuse to let it slip away. Sometimes the best things in life aren't perfect. They come wrapped in laughter, chaos, whipped cream smiles, and takeout dinners eaten on construction sites. Sometimes you walk into a coffee shop for a date and walk out with a home, a life, a family. Second chances aren't always tidy, but they're real. And when you're brave enough to say yes to the messy, unexpected, beautiful truth of it all, that's where real life begins.